Dr. Jillian Ramos here for another week of Science at Home. I hope you guys liked last week's video of extracting DNA from strawberries, but this week is going to be a little different because as a scientist, while I do spend most of my time doing experiments, a lot of my time is actually spent reading and writing. After I do a lot of experiments and write it up into a paper, it gets published in journals. And here's an example of a journal in which my paper would have been published in. But you can see in this journal, there's actually a lot of other scientific papers. And it's important for me to read those scientific papers to determine what's new in the field and what questions remain. And so today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that I'm sure you guys have been seeing all over the news. And a lot of papers are being published on it right now. And that's viruses. And for me to explain viruses to you, I think it's important for me to compare it to things you do know more about, such as human cells and potentially bacteria cells. Human cells, which make up us, are actually quite large in comparison to bacteria and viruses. A normal human cell that I work with in the lab is actually about 40 microns. 40 microns, what's that? So I'm going to put that in a size that you guys can relate to. So I'm going to say 40 microns compares to 20 inches. So I've drawn that for you. Here is my 20-inch human cell. So definitely unrealistic, but I'm hoping you guys can compare it to something. This human cell has a nucleus, which contains our DNA, such as the DNA you extracted last week from strawberries. When we compare a bacteria cell to a human cell, if a human cell is about 40 microns, a bacteria cell is about 1 micron. So again, if we're saying that a human cell is 20 inches in comparison, a bacteria cell is half an inch. So I've done a comparison for you. This brown square is the bacteria. Okay, so now viruses. Viruses are even smaller than bacteria. If a bacteria is 1 micron, or in my comparison, a half an inch, a virus is 0.125 microns. So if you look closely, this orange dot would be a virus. And we're comparing it to this human cell. Crazy, right? Well, viruses also differ in human cells in their genome. Human cells use DNA as their genetic material. But viruses, some of them use RNA. So I've drawn a comparison of that too. Here I am showing you double-stranded DNA, which makes up the human genome and also bacterial genome. And here I am showing you single-stranded RNA, which makes up some viruses' genomes. And with the virus you have heard about in the news, the family of coronaviruses, they have an RNA genome. Now, both do the same thing. They both encode proteins that are necessary for survival and replication. How does a virus infect humans? Well, this is specific to certain human cells. So you may have heard in the news that when people get sick with this new coronavirus, that it seems to impact their lungs. Well, that's because lung cells have a specific receptor that sits on the outside of the cell in which the virus can bind to and infect. What I mean is, in this human cell, a receptor would sit right here. And this little baby virus would bind and enter. Now I'm going to show you guys a close-up picture of the coronavirus family, the RNA genome. And this RNA genome is protected by a membrane, and this membrane has proteins that are important for infection, survival, and replication. Now this is why, if you guys can remember last week, using soap to wash your hands is so important, because soap will disrupt this membrane, and therefore the RNA genome is no longer protected, and that is bad for the virus. This virus is new. It's not like the cold virus or the flu virus, where if you get sick, people sort of know what's going to happen. You know that you can go to the store and get some medicine and feel better. That's not the case with this new virus. There is no medicine yet. We don't know exactly what the long-term effects are in people. And so that's why we're asked to stay home, so scientists can have some time to figure it out. Well, I hope you guys liked this mini lecture. Definitely come back next week. We will be making ice cream using the salt that your parents put on the driveway during winter.